Only played 2 years of high school, by the way. I was an athlete, but I wasn't a baseball player. Once some of the higher ups came to see me, I remember Mike Radcliffe, he was the scouting director in Minnesota. It's the first time he saw me throw a baseball. He said, that kid has a magical arm. And just because it doesn't go right on the field doesn't mean I abandon my routine, because my routine has gotten me to where I am today. Control what you can control. I was in control when my heartbeat was beep, beep, beep. That's when I was in control.
How does a kid from Gary, Indiana, with no college baseball offers go on to pitch in over 1,000 major league games across 21 seasons? Today, we're sitting down with LaTroy Hawkins, a man who redefined resilience, adapted through every era of baseball, and became one of the most reliable arms in the game. From bullpen struggles to high pressure moments, LaTroy's story is packed with lessons on longevity, overcoming adversity, and what it really takes to thrive at the highest level. If you're chasing big dreams in baseball, like we all are, or in life, this is an episode you cannot afford to miss. It is an honor to welcome to the show LaTroy Hawkins. LaTroy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, Ian? I appreciate you having me on your podcast, brother. And I also appreciate you coming up to saying hello during the ABCA convention. You said you saw my face and you knew where I was, but that's what the ABC is about. You know, meeting people and talking to people, even if you don't remember their name, you still go up to them and talk about them, talk to them, and you did that. And I appreciate you saying hello.
Man, I love that. Thank you. So as what you're kind of alluding to, man, I saw you there in the ABCA, right? The name escaped me, but the opportunity was there. I have this thing where I second guess in my head the name of people, and so I'll just avoid them, right? That's something in 2025 I'm working on. I'd
Okay.
rather not get somebody's name wrong and just kind of avoid that conversation. It's a crazy thing, man. So I appreciate everything kind of unfolded, man, and you being here. Would love to talk to you about your story, the stuff that you were able to overcome. Um, Getting to the big leagues itself is no easy feat, man. A select few are able to get there, but being able to have longevity in the game, especially as long as you've had, it's absolutely wild. Um, how were you able to do it? What was the mindset? What were the habits like that allowed you to sustain 21 years in the show?
So I go back a little bit. When you talk about, I was a kid that had no baseball offers. I had basketball offers. I'm going to go to Indiana State to play basketball. And I just hoped I could walk on the baseball team. Um, I can honestly say I didn't play a lot of baseball, in high school because of growing up in the Midwest. Right. Grew up in Gary, Indiana, right off from Lake Michigan, right next to Chicago. It was cold. So I was only playing probably about 15 to 17 games a year in high school. Only played 2 years of high school, by the way.
That's
Um,
crazy.
but in the summertime, I did play. I played about 30 games during the summer. Once I got to be about 16, I would go to those camps. They don't have them now, but they had camps around the area at over in Chicago. The Pirates always had camps, the Reds, the White Sox, and a couple other teams. They always did these camps in our area, and I made sure that my grandfather took me over there. But I was a crude athlete. I was an athlete, but I wasn't a baseball player. And I never had a coach that knew anything about baseball in high school. Our football coach was our baseball coach, and he did the best he could. He was a football coach, and I didn't appreciate that until I got older. That he actually, he took time out of his day, took time away from his family to fill a need in our school and in our community. But wasn't a baseball player, man. And I had a scout from the Twins named Dan Durst who saw me pitch and thought that I had a future in baseball. And once some of the higher ups came to see me, I remember Mike Radcliffe, may he rest in peace. He was the scouting director in Minnesota, and he told me this the first time he saw me throw a baseball. It was probably about 38 degrees outside, and he said that kid has a magical arm. Like, wow. So Mike Ratty deemed that I had a magical arm. right out of the gate. So, um, but once I got into professional baseball, I was so far behind everyone else. You get guys coming from Texas, Florida, Georgia, California, even Vegas, Georgia, and places where they're playing a lot more baseball than I did, and I was so far behind. And once I got there, it was the first time I ever had a pitching coach. Everything I knew about pitching was something that I saw on television, either watching the Chicago Cubs or watching the Chicago White Sox pitchers. So I was just winging it. And getting down to Fort Myers and seeing guys, you know, what we say throwing hard is not throwing hard like it is now, but seeing guys throw 90 to 92, 93 miles an hour, it's like, whoa, is big leagues already? Seeing guys take ground balls and turning double plays and just making the game look so easy. And I had never experienced that um, growing up because our baseball was so crude. You know, we had guys that played baseball, but they weren't baseball players. And it took me about 2 months, and I finally told myself, you know what, I could do this. I'm a pro now. I mean, I got professional coaches, and if I can find a coach that's able to understand how I learn, understand my body like I do, and can teach me, and I think I'll be all right. And I had Dwight Bernard, Eric Rasmussen, just a couple early pitching coaches that I had in professional baseball that taught me a lot. And, once you start to figure it out, once the light bulb goes on and you start to get comfortable with so many other factors, variables that play in, being away from home for the first time, just graduated from high school. All my friends are hanging out in Indiana and Gary, where we're from, for the summer before they went to college, and I'm working already. I literally left the day after I graduated from high school. Um, so, dealing with all that the first maybe 30 to 60 days. But once I got past I'm homesick, I wonder what everybody else is doing. Um, I miss my girlfriend. And once I started to embrace meeting new people from all around the world, Dominicans, Venezuelans, guys from Cleveland, California, it's not like it is now where you have a relationship with all these people because of social media before you actually get to meet them. We didn't have that. So going into that environment, it was very different for me. So there was a lot I had to learn off the field, and there was a lot I had to learn on the field to catch up, to even get halfway caught up to where the other guys were. They played on teams where they traveled around the country. I didn't do that. I played on basketball teams where I traveled around the country, but not baseball. But once I started to figure it out, started to get a little bit better, and then I started to, leave. I left the academy in Fort Myers, and then I was able to go to Elizabethton, then Fort Wayne, and once I got to Fort Wayne, um, I was really struggling to find my delivery, and it was the first time I had been back in Indiana to play baseball. So Fort Wayne is 2 hours from Gary, and I made the team out of spring training. It's like, okay, all right. I get to Fort Wayne, and I'm struggling, man. Like I couldn't get anybody out. And Andy McPhail, who was the president of our team at the time in Minnesota, he was in Fort Wayne watching us play because back then everybody came to see the minor league teams. And I came out of the bullpen. I don't even remember how I pitched, but he was there. And I remember going after the game in my locker, my manager, Jim Dwyer, Slice came and, hey, LaTroy, come to the office. I need to talk to you. And I'm thinking to myself, it's May. I'm like, I'm about to get sent back to Elizabethton because the draft is coming up, Ian. And I'm like, When I'm thinking about my stats and all that. I was like, 1-4 or 1-3 with like a 5 ERA, and just hadn't clicked yet. I walk in Jim Dwyer's office, and it's Jim Dwyer, it's 1-9, my pitching coach, and it's Andy McPhail, the president of the Twins at the time, the guy that signs our checks. I sit down. I'm prepared. The walk from my locker to the coach's office, I'm prepared to get home that night, call my grandparents and tell them, hey, I'm going back to Tennessee, Elizabeth. Sit down, and Andy McPhail starts talking. He said, "Hey, LaTroy, I had a chance to watch you pitch this year. I mean, this evening, and talk with Jim Dwyer. I talked with Slice. He called him Slice. Talk with Slice. Talk with 1-9, and you're going to be in the rotation the rest of the year. You're going to be in a rotation. I don't care how it turns out. You're going to start every 5 days." And I'm sitting there like scratching my head, like, you know what he doing? Like, you must have looked at my stats, Ian. Like, what's going on? So I was like, we stayed in there about 5 more minutes. They talked to me. I was like, okay, thank you, Andy. See you tomorrow, Slice. See you tomorrow, 1-9. And started that fifth day after that. And I ended up the season like 15-5 with a 2-some ERA. I had like 160, 170 innings or something. Tons of strikeouts. Broke some records in the Midwest League. Almost won the Triple Crown. Um, so it's just one of those things where Andy saw something in me that night that I didn't know I had. And the confidence that he showed in me, it gave me the confidence to go out there and you know what? You can go out there, you can compete in this league. And something, and again, that light bulb went on. I hit that switch. And won pitcher of the year that year, 94. I started in high rookie ball in Fort Myers with the Miracle. And I was there for a month. Went to Double A for 2 months, and in July the 3rd, I got called up to Triple A in 1994, and I went 18-6 that year, and that's when everything started to click. It just started to click. My command got better, my breaking ball got better. Changeup was still terrible, but it was a work in progress. And so 95, no, the end of 94, we went on strike. We got locked out. I can't remember. We got locked out or we walked out. One of the two. Well, that interfered with the whole offseason. I got put on the 40-man roster. 95, we missed a little bit of spring training. They settled. They come to an agreement, and we go to spring training for 2 weeks. And they let the rosters be expanded because of the short spring training. So they let our rosters be expanded by a few extra players. And I made the team out of spring training in 95 because of the roster expansion. And didn't do great. Got sent back to AAA. So I was up and down 95 to 97. And I ended up with 99 career starts. And in 2000, I went into the bullpen and, having a manager like Tom Kelly, who was our manager in Minnesota, he had that belief in me that Andy McPhail had in me. And he told me, we're going to move you to the bullpen where I think you're going to thrive. But he asked me, excuse me, do you want to learn how to pitch out of the bullpen in the big leagues or in AAA? Which one do you think I said? I would like to learn at the big league level. And that right there it changed the trajectory of my career, because if I'd have still continued to start, I'd have been out of the game. I would have been out of the game because I wasn't successful. I had a 6.66 ERA and 29, 30 starts one year. I didn't walk a lot of guys, but I didn't strike a lot of guys out, and I gave up my fair share of hits. So, just being able, and then the rest of that is just being able to make adjustments. The hitters will let you know when you need to make an adjustment, and I wasn't resistant to making adjustments. And I always had great pitching coaches, or one of my agents was a ex major league pitcher, and he was my away from the field pitching coach that helped me when I didn't. When he was watching the game and he saw something, he would immediately call me after the game, like, "Hey, this is what I saw. I don't know if that's what you're feeling." So I had it from outside the game, and I had my pitching coaches inside the game that watched me like a hawk and made sure I was doing the things that I needed to do to be successful. And all I had to do was stay healthy, and I was able to do that.
That is, man, that is huge. So you, not like an accountability partner, but you have multiple sources that you trust, that know what they're doing, that have confidence in you, that have your back, that will keep you in line, right? Not BS you, man. Help you with adjustments, give you constructive feedback,
Oh yeah.
criticism. That's huge. In your opinion, is that what separates the guys with longevity versus the guys that just get there and just kind of fizzle out?
Well, there are so many factors to that, but for me, it was being able to make adjustments, having people that I trusted who, you say nobody should know your body better than you do. But, I subscribed to that for a while and then I understood like, no, I got people that watch me pitch every night. I got people who I talk to every day that understands my mental. They understand how my body works. I also had to contribute a long career to having, a solid family, having a wife and, kids and everything being stable and, and the rest of my family being able to understand that I had a job to do and I did need a lot of the outside distractions if I wanted to do my job effectively. And my family completely understood that.
Man, that's huge. So you had talked a little bit. You said 99 games as a starter, right? And then
Yes.
you transitioned obviously over to the bullpen, and then the rest is history. But being a setup man, being a starter, being a closer, you're under an insane amount of pressure. You got to embrace it, especially towards the back end of the game, man. High leverage situations. When we're thinking about the stuff you've been able to do consistently over the amount of time you've been able to do it, man, what kind of advice would you give to the next generation of athletes, baseball players, pitchers that want to hopefully do the things that you did one day when it comes to handling pressure?
I like to tell the youth, and everybody's a youth to me that's in the game. 'Cause I'm 52, so like control what you can control, and always be prepared. Because I made sure my grandfather used to always tell me prior proper planning prevents poor performance, and I felt like if I was prepared, I had a better chance of being successful. It didn't always work out because that guy has a bat also, and I can make a mistake, and hitters make mistakes. But I always, I always leaned on my foundation. I always made sure I was prepared. And another thing that helped me, Rick Aguilera, who was a closer for the Minnesota Twins, I watched him blow 3 saves in a row against the same team, the Boston Red Sox. 3 nights in a row, blew the save. First night he blew the save, I'm leaving the stadium. I had to walk through the gym to get out. He's in there doing the same thing workout he would do had he just struck out the side in 9 pitches to get the save. The second night, did the same exact thing. And I'm walking past and I'm thinking to myself, I would be losing my mind right now. The third night, the same exact thing. It was a day game, so it was that afternoon. And I'm like, I was about to walk out and I stopped. I said, Aggie, can I ask you a question? He said, sure, Hawk. Always the same calm, cool demeanor. Unbelievable individual. It's like, how do you do it? Like you just blew 3 saves. I'm like, hey, Hawk, they got me. They got me this time. I'm going to get them eventually. I'm going to get them.
It's
But
crazy.
what happens on the field doesn't determine how I react, with my routine. I have to continue my routine. This is something that has never wavered. That's always been there for me. My routine is solid. And just because it doesn't go right on the field doesn't mean I abandon my routine because my routine has gotten me to where I am today. And I was like,
That's
wow,
huge.
Aggie. And after that, I never got mad on the field unless I was at an umpire, but not at other players or myself. And I never got too high. I wanted to always, give this give this appearance that LaTroy is in total control. Even though when things are going crazy. And I always and being a not successful starter means I had so many people on base that when I got in the bullpen, having guys on base didn't bother me. I was very comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
That's huge, man. So that's huge. I feel like nowadays, man, when a player will face adversity, let's say they blow multiple saves in a row, man, they'll change everything up. They kind of don't know how to keep going. So how I talk to my audience and the players that I talk to, the players that I work with are, it's I say this, man. If you're identity is wrapped up in your performance, it's going to be a bumpy road, right? So when we talk about performance based identity versus like a process based identity, talking about the routines,
Hmm.
man, you don't ride the roller coaster that way. I love that you brought that up, man. I absolutely love that.
But you know how difficult it is not to ride the roller coaster. And I think some people are inherently wired that way. They're up and down, up and down, up and down. That would be too exhausting for me. So I couldn't operate in that realm. I had to operate in the realm as I'm calm because when I get too hyped, I'm out of control. If I get too low, I'm out of control. I was in control when my heartbeat was beep, beep, beep. That's when I was in control. And I always wanted to be in control. Maybe I'm a control freak, but I always wanted to be in control of my heart rate and my actions.
Oh, were there any specific techniques, concepts, ideas that you thought, man? We hear all the time about breathing exercises, box breathing, all that stuff. That's great, man. Is there anything specific that worked for you?
Huge breather. Big, big. I would teach it to anybody that wants to hear it. Because if you can regulate your heart rate, you can slow things down. Because if your heart rate is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're not built to operate like that. You're not. That's your check engine lights coming on. And I didn't need my check engine light coming on when the game was on the line. I did not need my check engine light. No, I didn't. So I always tried to calm. Even if it didn't go my way, I was still calm. It was just, you beat me that day. And I'm okay. We played a sport where I was okay if you beat me. Because you know what? It happens. And guys are like, I didn't like to lose. Nobody likes to lose, but you're going to get beat.
Mm,
You're going to get beat. I don't care who you are. You're going to get beat at some point because that guy has the bat. He likes nice cars. He likes to live in a big house. He likes to have a very nice bank account. And we do too on the mound. So that's a clash right there.
mm.
But I just, no, hey man, it's, whew. I mean, that was, man, I just wanted to be in control. And
It's
I
huge,
wanted to
man.
be really comfortable. I always wanted to look comfortable, even though chaos was brewing around me.
Yeah, it's. I was just talking about it the other day on one of the most recent episodes that we had here on the nine hole. You see hitters nowadays. They'll pimp home runs. We got bat flips, man. I get it. I was old school. I didn't really show emotion on the
Mhm.
field. Man, maybe that's on me. But it's the pitcher that can get a home run hit off of him. Guy bat flips to Narnia, does whatever he's got to do, makes a show, round of the bases, and he's still a killer on the mound. He doesn't show emotion, strikes out the side, like gets back in the dugout, doesn't blow up. I'm like, dude, that guy is. I don't want to face that guy. That guy's scary. You know what I mean? That's
He didn't
serious.
flinch.
It's scary, man. If you could be in control like that, I don't want to face you.
Yeah. And
What?
I'm in control like that because I understand that nobody has ever played this game for a long period of time and have a 0.00
Mm,
ERA, a 0.00 batting average against. Nobody. You're gonna get got. You just make sure you get got only three out of 10 times or 2 out of 10 times.
I
There
love
you
that.
go. There you
That makes
go.
sense.
If you're striving for perfection, you're gonna pretty much come up short. You striving. I mean, people say, "Well, I'm striving." We all strive for, but that's not where I want to be. I don't want to be striving for perfection because I think that's fool's gold. Striving for perfection. I think that's fool's gold for me because I'm facing Hall of Famers, and we're all striving for perfection. So somebody gonna have some imperfection, and sometimes it's gonna be me, and sometimes it's gonna be you. But if I'm striving for like I think that's so unattainable and it's fool's gold. I would like to be for me in my game, I wanted to be consistent, I wanted to be reliable, and I wanted to be available. Consistent, reliable, and available.
Wow. Yeah, that's you can't have an impact when you're in the training room, right? You can't have an impact in the tub, man. I get it. Um, I love that. I appreciate you elaborating on that. That's huge. Talk about the mental game here. over and over. It's a constant theme. It's not talked about enough. So I appreciate you elaborating on that, man. So last night, we just saw three new members in Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame, man. Ichiro Suzuki, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner. Absolutely incredible. Ichiro Suzuki, for me, made me fall in love with the small ball, the small guy game, right? Made me fall in love with bunting, with running, man. I wanted to hit the ball out of the ballpark. That wasn't me. I saw Ichiro do it. I fell in love with it. He had an absolute impact on me and how I played the game. I'm grateful, man. For you, who was the biggest influence on your career, man, and how did they shape the way that you approach the game? I know you had mentioned, Andy, you had mentioned your coach, man. They were great. They had great impact on you, had confidence in you, helped you rise up, man. Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Um, for me, once I got into professional ball, I had a couple of minor league coaches. Um, Dwight Bernard was our minor league pitching coordinator. Had 1-9. Eric Rasmussen and Rick Anderson, who was my pitching coach in the big leagues in Minnesota. Um, that was early on. But once I got there and you start to figure it out, and you're up there with guys who've been in the big leagues for a little bit, like guys like David Wells, Mike Jackson, Rick Aguilera, Eddie Guardado, guys who were in the bullpen, who've been there for a couple years, understood. And now what you do is you watch. You watch, not what they say, you watch what they do and how they go about their business. And I think I had the best group of guys to imitate in all of baseball because they understood their responsibility as a veteran. They understood their responsibility of bringing along the young guys on the team and making them feel comfortable and helping them perfect their craft. And Bob Tewksbury also. Bob Tewksbury was one of my favorites. I played with him for 1 year in Minnesota. And oh God, Mike. Oh, I can't remember Mike. What's Mike's?
I put you on the spot, man.
Yeah,
I
you
put you
did.
on the
But
spot.
I thought about him. I had the name.
Hey,
I'll remember his
we'll
name.
get it back. I'll make
Those
sure
are my
this gets
guys.
in. Yep, I love that, man. So we talked about it before. Man, success leaves clues. Success leaves breadcrumbs, right? If you're a student of the game, even if you aren't the best player, the most talented man, you can learn something, man. You can watch, you can see how they go about their business. Some of the best baseball players in the world, man, there's a reason, right? It's not necessarily you have to be born with it. Maybe you can develop it. Maybe you can learn it, man. I love that. I think that's huge. I don't think players nowadays are students of the game, right? Maybe they're not watching warm up pitches. They're not getting tells on maybe any type of mannerisms or like patterns. I just feel like we rely on data so much. It's sometimes the feel and the baseball IQ kind of get left behind a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're right. The field and the baseball IQ, and a lot of guys. I like to tell people it's not their fault. They're part. They're a product of their generation. Just like I was a product of mine, you're a product of your. We're products of our generation. Um, I wasn't an innovator. I was not. So I was a product of my generation. And these kids that are playing the game now, they've grown up with social media. They've grown up with a cell phone. They've grown up with an iPad. They grow up with a computer. They've grown up with specialized coaching at a young age. They've grown up with travel ball. They've grown up with all that. So they've grown up in an era where baseball puts more emphasis on velo as opposed to command and pitchability. So it's not their fault. They've grown up where the launch angle, swinging up like you're like your golf swing, is a huge deal. If they'd have grown up in my generation, they would have played like we played. So they're just a product of their generation. I enjoy watching them play um, because I'll say this, and I say this on the air a lot when I'm doing the broadcast in Minnesota. These guys, the pitchers, are way better than we were. Way better. Way better. Their stuff is unreal. Now, are they? Do they have the command that we had? No, because the emphasis is not on command. Emphasis not on it. Our emphasis was on command. So we honed in on command, starting when you got drafted and you're in rookie ball. Well, that's not where their radar is now. Their radar is 98 to 103, throwing the ball down the middle, a little bit elevated, and then throwing your curveball or your slider. So, they're part of the generation that they're in. I don't knock them. I love the analytics. I do. I think there's a whole lot that apply, and I think there's a whole lot that, we can take it or leave it. Is not going to determine, it's not going to make me think twice about making a decision that my gut is telling me to make.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a product of your generation. I get it. The game is changing, man. We've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
it. How players are looked at, what they're graded on. What's attractive as the game moves. So does everything else that goes with it. Um, Being a product of today's age and the game, we're seeing a lot of players specialize in baseball. Man, with velo at the forefront, throwing as hard as you can. I don't even want to get into the injury type stuff. Do you think it's a benefit when you're a young athlete to focus in on baseball solely, or be broad and play multiple sports, man? What is your take on that?
I would like for you to be broad and play multiple sports, because I think guys who play multiple sports, um, their awareness of their body, what they're able to do on a football field, a baseball field, a lacrosse, or cross country, a long jump, all that plays a huge factor into what type of athlete you are on a baseball field. The muscle confusion, I love that. But this day and age, it's hard to be that, because there's so much baseball being played, and you can easily get behind. You can easily get behind if you're not doing it consistently. And do I think it's great for the game that the kids are playing 150, 200 games a year? No, I do not. I don't think it's great on the kid at all. But again, they're a product of their generation that they're in, where more is better in their eyes. And then getting paid to throw 96 to 98 as a 14, 15, 16, 17 year old, it's not the kid's fault. It's the industry that's driving that. And the industry that drives that is, unfortunately, Major League Baseball and travel ball, because guys are getting paid on throwing hard. They're not getting paid on being able to pitch. They're getting paid on being able to throw hard. So a lot of the kids are doing that out of necessity. They have to do it, or they feel like they won't get paid, the money that they think they're worth by the end of their senior year. So it's so many variables to it, but it's just it's all personal preference. Do I agree with some of it? Yes, I do. Do not agree with some of it? Sure, I don't agree with everything, but they're a product of their generation.
Love it. So, man, I had some questions from the audience, specifically as
Mhm.
your preparation as a reliever. So what was your in-season routine in order to stay sharp, in order to stay fresh? And then what was your preparation like on the days where you weren't available?
On the days, I'll start with that one. That's easy. The days I wasn't available, I did nothing. I gave my body a rest. And I'll get to why I gave my body a rest. But routine, I got to the ballpark 1 o'clock, and I made sure that I did my lifting, but my lifting was not with weights. I did all my resistance bands. I did my agility stuff, and that's it. I would go out and throw before batting practice, and I would get on the mound pretty much about 5, 6 times a week. I never wore my spikes on the mound when I was just throwing a touch and field, as I called it. I would have the catcher in front of the plate, and I just wanted to touch the mound. And I wore my tennis shoes because I didn't want to. I wanted to be able to control my body. Felt like if I had on my spikes, that was a safety blanket for me. So now, if I got on my spikes, and if my mechanics are a little off, now I'm going to the mound. I'm going to practice and continue to doing the same thing that I was doing in the game. That's off. Something's off. So I would use my tennis shoes, and I would control my body, because if you get out too far with those tennis shoes on, you're gonna slip. So I wore them so I can control my body. If I can controlling my body, I control my delivery, and I can get back in that sweet spot where I needed to be. I did that pretty much every day. On day games, I did not throw at all, um, because I had this thing. It was the one day that I had a chance to completely rest if I wasn't feeling that good. So if I had thrown the night before and we had a day game, you know what? I'm not going to throw on this day game. Say I didn't throw the night before, I threw the night before that. Say I threw on Monday, we got a day game Wednesday. I wouldn't throw on Wednesday, and only time I picked up a baseball if I was having to go in the game. So if I didn't have to go in the game, I had 2 days of doing nothing.
Huge.
And then one day, so if I didn't go to the game on Tuesday, that means I played catch right before batting practice. So I had the rest of batting practice and the entire game off, and then I had the whole next day off. So that was my recovery for me. And guys thought that was crazy. And I used to tell I summed it up like this: you're not going to forget how to throw, but you will recover if you don't throw. You will feel better if you don't throw. Matt Bilal, right-hand pitcher with me in Colorado. I always pick out who I wanted to play catch with. And him and okay, we're going to be catch partners. I don't throw on day games. And he thought I was joking. So the first day game of the year, he come looking for me. I'm in the training room getting my shoulder stretched out. He's like, bro, Hawk, we're not throwing. I'm like, I told you I don't throw in day game. He's like, come on, man, I got to throw every day. I said, no, you don't. You think you have to throw every day, but you don't have to throw every day. You're not going to forget how to throw. So fast forward about 4 years later, he comes to play for the Twins. And I'd already retired, and he was saying, man, LaTroy, I hadn't thrown it on a day game in like 3 years. It's the best thing I ever had happen. I'm like, I told you. I can understand, like, it takes some time mentally to grasp that I'm not picking up a baseball. But once you get it, like, I'm not gonna forget how to throw. This is what I do. And I'm a big believer of, you don't have to pick up a baseball every day. You do not have to pick up a baseball every day. Anytime during a long season that you cannot pick up the baseball and completely give your body, your mind a breather, take it.
Huge.
Take it.
So, man, huge. That's something that I feel like I didn't fully wrap my head around until I was at the back end of my career, and I was hurting. You know what I mean? I'm getting older. Um, First time that I really experienced it was 2019 in Minnesota. Got called up to the big leagues for the first time. We got dudes like Nelson Cruz, who I don't even know how old he was at the time. I spent some time with him in Seattle, man, so I had known this guy. But Rocco Baldelli would say, "Hey, game's at 7:05." I don't even. We might have clinched then. Game's at 7:05. The locker room doesn't even open until like 5. And I would wrap my head. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. Like, what? Like, we got to be there at noon. Hitting until my hands bleed just to get ready to maybe come off the bench. It's like, dude, these guys are intentional about the reps that they do. They don't necessarily need to do like
Not
quantity
the
over
quantity,
quality.
it's over quality.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
There you
It
go.
took it took me so long. Took me 29 years, 27 years to wrap my head around that, man. It's crazy. LaTroy, I'm grateful. I appreciate you. A couple more questions I got, and I don't want to keep you on here all day. I am so grateful for the time, man. So we're here talking to the next generation of 9-hole hitters, man. Players that hope to one day have an impact and a career like you've been able to achieve. It's fantastic. Giving advice to those guys, continuing this advice. Man, if you were to go back and give yourself some advice, right? 20-year-old self, what would you say about this long road ahead?
What would I say to 20-year-old LaTroy Hawkins? Be patient. A complete baseball. There's only a couple baseball players that were created overnight, and I wasn't one of them. So be patient. Um, Work harder, work smarter, and never lose sight of why you play the game. Why you play the game. And I feel like that age and probably a couple years after that, I kind of lost sight why I was playing the game. And once I found that passion for the game of baseball, that was another, instance where I can see my trajectory of my career started to go this way. Finding that passion for the game. And be focused, man. You're a professional baseball player. You have to be focused because if you're not focused, those other six guys are focused. And those other six guys got the same talent as you, got drafted the same year, probably got same amount of money, and might have got drafted even higher than you. So stay focused because your focus is gonna what's gonna push you forward in the game. It's gonna keep you on that ladder, that slow climb to the big leagues. Stay focused because when you get out of focus, when your personal life is in shambles and everything else is distracting you from being able to be the best version of yourself on the baseball field, that's when things start to unravel pretty fast.
Ooh, so the focus factor, you think that's the most common mistake maybe today that you might see in the younger generation or the players that are hoping to have an impact or the career you've had in the game?
Yeah, it's the focus part just because of the social media aspect. And I think most people they want instant gratification. And baseball is predicated around failure. So you're going to fail a hell of a lot more than you're going to succeed. But social media gives you this perception that life is roses and tulips and any other kind of beautiful flowers you can think of. And it's not. It's not. We're real people. We have real issues. And you have to stay focused and not get distracted by the noise. And I understand now everybody has a what do you call it? Not your makeup, but when you have I can't even think of it. Mine not working right now, Ian. But
You're
you
good.
have this facade that need to keep up with other people, and that's not true. And
Okay.
you have to give out this fake aura. No, be yourself. Be true to yourself. Um, you don't. A lot of times, social media make guys feel like they made it when they hadn't got there yet. And I think I think that's a common factor this day and age. And the access that they have to so many things because of this right here. Very distracting. Very
Mm,
distracting. We didn't have that. So we're a little bit more focused. A little bit more focused in that aspect.
for sure.
In that
For
aspect.
sure.
Yep.
Okay. LaTroy, man, I want to thank you so much for your time being on here, man. Let me run you through the gauntlet of questions, poking prior to your career, man. Try to take a look inside the mind of a 21-year major league veteran, man. I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you for the time.
No problem at all. And thank you for having me, Ian.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Appreciate you. If there's one takeaway, guys, for everybody that's listening or watching, man, the game may change, but the values that define greatness, like hard work, humility, and a love for the process, never do. I want to thank you, LaTroy, for being an awesome example of that. I want to thank you guys, every one of you, for tuning in to this edition of the Nine Hole Podcast. We'll catch you guys again next time.